Okay, this is strange because the first card is judgment reversed. And psychologically, that is exactly where this person seems to be right now. Not making the decision, not wanting to look at the decision, almost acting like if they delay it long enough, nothing has to change. But something already has, because they're starting to realize you are not waiting around. This is where the panic comes in. This person may look controlled outside. They could be confident, attractive, somebody who normally has options, somebody used to being desired. But around you, completely different story. There is this feeling of, I thought I had more time. Wait, that is really strong. Judgment reversed here feels like someone refusing to answer a call they already know they need to answer, not literally. Symbolically, this is avoidance. They know they feel something. They know the attraction has gone way past casual, but admitting that would mean admitting they could lose you. And I think something happened recently that made that possibility feel real. I'm not going to jump into exactly what yet because there is another layer underneath this card. This person has been trying to convince themselves they are still in control. Maybe they pull back. Maybe they take longer to respond. Maybe they act like they did not notice who was looking at you, who's talking to you, who suddenly seems interested in being around you. But they noticed. Oh, they noticed. And what scares them is not simply, what if you reject me? I think that used to be the fear. Now, the fear is, what if I stay quiet and somebody else gets there first? That changes everything. Because judgment reversed is showing the psychological cost of hesitation. The longer they avoid being honest with themselves, the more they have to watch you continue being desirable, independent, and completely capable of choosing someone who actually steps forward. And there is one specific thing they may have seen or realized that made this jealousy spike. That is what I want to get into with the next card next. And I think the thing that triggered it may have looked so small from your side. Maybe you were talking to someone and you seemed a little more engaged than usual. Maybe somebody complimented you and this person saw how naturally you received it. Maybe there was a social media interaction, a comment, a like, somebody suddenly appearing around you more often. Maybe you did not even do anything. That is the part. It could simply be that somebody else made their interest obvious, and suddenly your person had to see something they have been avoiding. You are not just sitting there emotionally reserved for them while they figure themselves out. Someone else can approach you. Someone else can flirt with you. Someone else can make you feel wanted without making you question where you stand. Wait, I think that last part bothers them more than they expected. Because this was never really about seeing you already committed to somebody else. They do not need that much evidence for the jealousy to kick in. All they needed was one moment where they realized another person could recognize what they recognize in you and actually do something about it. That is terrifying when you have been hesitating. And something about their reaction tells me they have been watching the situation much more closely than they let on. They noticed who you were talking to. They noticed when your energy shifted. They noticed when you seemed happier, busier, less focused on them. Maybe you started taking longer to respond. Maybe you stopped giving them the same little openings you used to give them. Maybe somebody else's name came up a little too often. And logically, none of that has to mean anything. But psychologically, huge. Because when somebody is already insecure about how long they have waited, every small change starts looking like evidence that the window is closing. That is what this feels like. Not, they have definitely found someone else. More like, oh no, they could. And I really do not think this person expected that realization to hit them this hard, because now they are watching, comparing, trying to figure out whether there is actually someone else getting closer to you. And the interesting thing is, this jealousy is not staying quietly inside their head anymore. It is starting to leak into the way they act around you. And you may have already noticed it, because once somebody like this starts feeling threatened, they usually do not come out and say, "I'm jealous." They do something else. Maybe they suddenly become more present. Maybe they respond faster right after seeing you give somebody else attention. Maybe they start teasing you more, trying to pull your focus back toward them without making it obvious that is what they are doing. Or they go quiet. That could be part of it too. You are laughing with somebody, talking to somebody, clearly enjoying yourself, and suddenly this person's energy changes. They are still there, still watching, but something closes off. Then later, now they have questions. Casual questions that are not actually casual. Who was that? How do you know them? Are you guys close? Maybe they say it jokingly. Maybe they make some little comment and immediately act like they do not care about the answer. They care. And I think they are also comparing themselves to whoever they think could become competition. Wait, this gets interesting because it may not even be about whether that other person is objectively better. They could be comparing appearance, confidence, money, social status, chemistry, how comfortable you seem around them. But the comparison that bothers them most might be much simpler. Is that person actually available? Are they emotionally open? Would they make a move? Because your crush knows exactly where they have been falling short. They can be attractive, they can be confident, they can have options. None of that matters if somebody else is willing to walk toward you while they keep standing still. And that is why you may notice them showing off a little more now. Finding reasons to be around you, trying to remind you that the chemistry is there. Maybe they become warmer right when you start pulling away. Maybe they suddenly give you attention they were withholding before. It is contradictory because technically they have not claimed anything. They have not clearly said, "I want you." But emotionally, they are reacting like losing access to you would hurt. Before, rejection was the nightmare. What if I make this obvious and they do not feel the same? Now something has flipped. Because waiting quietly while somebody else gets closer to you feels even worse. And that jealousy you are seeing? I do not think that is the whole problem. I think it is the first visible sign that their usual sense of control is starting to fall apart. And I think that is where this becomes bigger than jealousy, because this person may normally be very good at controlling the pace. They decide when to move closer. They decide when to pull back. They decide how much they reveal. And usually that gives them a sense of safety because they can tell themselves, if I need space, I can take space. If I want this later, it will still be there. But with you, that assumption is not working anymore. The moon here feels psychological more than anything else. Uncertainty, not knowing exactly where they stand with you anymore. Filling in the blanks because they do not have enough reassurance to know what is actually happening. And I think that is what is getting under their skin. Because your independence has taken away something they usually rely on: predictability. If they pull away, you might not chase. If they stay silent, your life does not pause. If they act indifferent, that does not stop somebody else from noticing you. Wait, that is actually the deeper issue. I think this person may have believed they could leave this unresolved for a while. Focus on work, focus on other people, focus on whatever else was happening in their life. because somewhere underneath all of that was an assumption that you would still be emotionally available when they finally decided what they wanted to do. And now they are not so sure. So maybe they type something and delete it. Maybe they check whether you seem interested, then immediately act colder because they feel too exposed. Maybe they replay conversations afterward, wondering if they missed something. Were they flirting with me? Were they pulling away? Did I wait too long? And then the next time they see you, suddenly there is more flirting, more attention, more effort. Not necessarily because they have made some big conscious decision, but because part of them wants reassurance without having to actually ask for reassurance. That is the contradiction. They want to know you still want them, but they do not want to admit they need to know. And I think they are starting to wonder whether they pushed this strategy too far. Because the things they normally use to distract themselves from feelings: work, attention from other people, staying busy, acting like it is not that serious. Those things are not working the same way anymore, and there is a reason for that. Because I think they were able to keep this connection in separate little boxes before. Attraction over here, work over there, friends, responsibilities, other people giving them attention, whatever keeps their mind occupied. And whenever the feelings around you became inconvenient, they could just push them back into that box and tell themselves they would deal with it later. But now there is a problem. Later suddenly has consequences. Because if somebody else actually gets close to you while they are busy distracting themselves, they do not get to decide when this starts again. You might decide for them. Wait. I think that is why the distractions are losing their effect. It is not that nothing else in their life matters anymore. It is not that other attention cannot still feel good. Of course it can, but it does not hit the same place. Somebody can compliment them. Somebody can flirt with them. They can stay busy, go out, focus on work, get wrapped up in their normal routine. And then something reminds them of you. A conversation. The way you looked at them, how close you were standing that one time, the way your energy changes when you know they are looking at you. And suddenly they are right back there because without really meaning to, they have started comparing the feeling, not necessarily comparing people, the feeling. And that is harder to dismiss. There is something about being close to you that seems to make them unusually aware of themselves. Maybe they notice your eyes, your voice, the way you carry yourself. Small things you probably do without thinking. Maybe there have been moments where neither of you said anything particularly obvious, but the atmosphere changed anyway. They felt it. And I think they have been trying very hard to classify that as simple attraction, because simple attraction is manageable. You can enjoy it. Ignore it. Come back to it later. But the second jealousy entered the picture, they had to admit this is affecting them differently. Because imagining you choosing somebody else does not just bruise their ego. It actually bothers them. And now there is another layer they have to deal with. Because the emotional jealousy is one thing. The physical pull toward you, that is becoming much harder for them to pretend they have under control. And I think that is why being physically close to you is starting to feel more intense than they expected. Because they notice things. Your eyes, your voice when you are talking directly to them. The little expressions you make when you are amused. The way you carry yourself when you are not trying to impress anybody. And there may have been moments where the eye contact lasted just slightly too long. Neither person says anything. Nobody technically crosses a line. But they feel the shift. Maybe they move closer without thinking and then suddenly create distance again. Maybe they flirt with you, get exactly the reaction they wanted, and then become weirdly serious afterward. Maybe they look at you very directly 1 second and avoid your eyes the next. That push-pull makes sense because the more obvious the attraction becomes to them, the more exposed they feel. Before, they could privately enjoy wanting you. They could imagine another conversation, another opportunity, another moment where maybe something finally happens. There was always later. But now they are imagining somebody else getting those moments. Somebody else being the person you look at that way. Somebody else getting closer to you emotionally. Somebody else receiving the attention, affection, and intimacy they have been quietly imagining for themselves, and that changes the attraction. It gives it urgency. Wait, I do not think the real problem is that they want you. They could handle wanting you. The problem is that wanting you now comes with something they cannot control, the possibility of actually losing you. That makes you emotionally dangerous to somebody who is used to staying composed. Because if they show you exactly how attracted they are, they reveal how much power this situation has over them. So sometimes the stronger the pull gets, the cooler they may act. They move towards you, then retreat. Seek your attention, then pretend they were not trying. Turn the flirting up, then act like the interaction meant absolutely nothing. But it did, and they know it did, because this is no longer just about chemistry they can enjoy from a safe distance. There is vulnerability underneath it now, a much more uncomfortable fear. And I think it is the one thing this person would really prefer nobody, not even you, to see. And I think underneath all of that is a much less comfortable question. What if I already messed this up? Because once they cannot clearly read you anymore, their mind starts filling in the blanks. Maybe they wonder if you ever liked them as much as they thought you did. Maybe they wonder if they waited too long. Maybe they look at somebody else around you and immediately assume that person has an advantage simply because they are more direct, more available, less afraid to make their interest obvious. And for somebody who normally seems confident, not knowing where they stand with you can make them unusually insecure. Because I think they were getting reassurance from you before without necessarily realizing it. Your attention, your openness, the way you responded to them. Little signs that said, yes, there is still something here. But if you have stopped giving as much of that, now they have to guess. And they do not like guessing. So they may look for reassurance without asking for it. They might flirt just to see if you flirt back. Pull away and watch whether you come after them. Say something slightly suggestive, then study your reaction. And if you simply continue being independent, they can interpret that as distance, even when it is not. Wait, I think this is the fear underneath the fear. It is not only, I could lose them. It is, I could lose them because I waited too long, avoided this, and created the exact situation I was afraid of. That brings us right back to judgment reversed. The hesitation, the refusal to make the decision because making it felt risky. Except now they are realizing that not making a decision was still a decision. And it may have consequences. That is why this is tightening psychologically, because they cannot completely blame timing. They cannot blame another person. They cannot even blame you for continuing with your life. Some part of them knows they had opportunities to be clearer, to move closer, to give you something real to respond to, and they did not, at least not yet. So now the risk has changed. Doing something might expose them, but doing nothing? That is starting to feel even more dangerous. And I think that is where you may start noticing an actual change, not necessarily some huge confession. Probably not, at least not immediately. because this person is still nervous about exposing themselves. But the pressure is different now. Before, making a move felt dangerous because they could hear no. Now, staying quiet feels dangerous because somebody else could get a yes. That is a completely different motivation. So maybe they start initiating more. Maybe the response time suddenly gets shorter. Maybe they find small reasons to talk to you that technically could mean nothing, except they keep happening. They ask what you are doing this weekend. They become more curious about who you spend time with. They remember something you mentioned and bring it up later. Maybe they start trying to see you more often without directly saying, I want to see you. That awkwardness actually makes sense. Because they may disguise something meaningful as something casual, just so they have somewhere to hide if they feel too exposed. Hey, I was just wondering, I happen to be nearby. This reminded me of you. Right, sure. But pay attention to patterns here. One message? That could be anything. One flirty comment? Same thing. What matters is whether the behavior starts becoming consistent. More effort, more vulnerability, more willingness to keep the connection moving instead of constantly leaving you to guess. Wait. And I think there is something else. They may become less comfortable pretending not to care when other people come up. Maybe their tone changes. Maybe they ask one extra question. Maybe suddenly they want to know whether you are actually available, not because they have magically become fearless. Feelings do not automatically create courage. But there is a point where fear starts pushing in the opposite direction. And this person may be reaching it because now they understand that keeping everything ambiguous does not preserve the opportunity. It can actually cost them the opportunity. That is the shift. But then we get to the question that matters more than whether they are jealous, more than whether they are attracted, more than whether they finally reach out. If they stop hiding behind ambiguity, what are they actually prepared to offer you? Because attraction is already obvious. The jealousy is already obvious. The real test now is whether they can choose clarity when ambiguity has been protecting them this whole time. And I think that is the point this person cannot avoid anymore. Because the question is not, do they want you? They do. That part has become obvious. The attraction is there, the jealousy is there, the fear is there. But none of those things automatically create a relationship. None of them automatically create clarity. And I think this person knows that now. Because imagine what really scares them about somebody else entering the picture. It is not only that somebody else could be attractive or confident or have chemistry with you. It is that somebody else could give you what they have been withholding. Consistency, effort, clear interest, emotional availability, someone who does not make you decode everything. Wait, that hits differently because now the imagined competition is not just, what if they like somebody else more than me? It becomes, what if somebody else takes this opportunity more seriously than I did? And that is uncomfortable, especially when they know they have spent so much time trying to stay protected, pulling back, waiting, acting detached, trying to control how much you could see. Meanwhile, you were never required to keep waiting for them to become comfortable. That is the part that shifts everything back toward you because their feelings can be intense. Their attraction can be intense. They can think about you, miss you, get jealous, feel nervous, replay moments, notice every little change. But eventually, behavior has to meet feeling. Otherwise, you are still standing in the same ambiguity. And I do not think you are giving that ambiguity the same emotional access anymore. Maybe before, they could do very little and still feel your interest. Maybe they could disappear and come back. give you a little attention, and immediately feel reassured that the connection was still there. But something has changed. You are not making it so easy for them to assume they still have unlimited time. And that might be the most important part of this whole situation. Not how afraid they are of losing you, not how jealous they become when somebody else notices you, but what you have stopped giving them without anything real being offered in return. Because I think that is exactly what they are starting to feel disappearing. And I think what they are feeling disappear is the assumption that you will simply remain available. Not because you are trying to make them jealous, not because you are playing some game, but because your life is still moving. You can meet people, you can receive attention, you can change your mind. You can become interested in somebody who actually makes their interest clear. And psychologically, that is what has changed the balance here. Because somewhere in the beginning, I think this person believed the connection could stay exactly where they left it, unresolved, still attractive, still emotionally charged, still waiting for them whenever they were ready. But you are not waiting around. There it is. That was the whole problem from the beginning, and now everything else makes sense. The jealousy, the sudden attention, the watching, the insecurity, the physical tension, the fear that somebody else might get closer to you. Another person does not necessarily create feelings that were never there. Sometimes they just create consequences. Suddenly, the person who was comfortable postponing everything has to imagine what postponing could actually cost them. Wait, that is probably why this feels so intense now. Because before, they could want you privately and still believe nothing was changing. Now they understand that while they are thinking about what to do, you are still living. And their attraction does not stop that. Their jealousy does not stop that. Even their fear of losing you does not stop that. They still have to choose what they are going to do with those feelings. That part belongs to them. Your part is much simpler. You get to keep moving. You get to notice who actually shows up, who communicates, who makes effort, who gives you something more substantial than chemistry and mixed signals. And that is where the judgment reversed story finally comes full circle. They have been hesitating because choosing felt frightening, but their hesitation does not require you to remain frozen beside them. You are free to keep going. So yes, I think the possibility of losing you has become very real to this person. But if they are truly that terrified of losing you, eventually, that fear has to become more than something happening silently inside their head.